How many fish can I fit in a 10-gallon aquarium? What about 20 gallons? 55? I get this question all the time, so let me go through the process I use to figure out my fish stocking level at home. Hi, my name is Irene with Aquariumcoop, and I would say there are three main contributing factors that impact the amount of fish we can keep in an aquarium. So the first category is bioload, or the amount of waste produced in an aquarium. And if you've seen our video on the aquarium nitrogen cycle, you know that when you feed your fish goes to the bathroom, and then that fish poop releases toxic waste compounds that can be lethal to your fish at high enough levels. Thankfully, we have things like beneficial bacteria, live aquarium plants, aka biological filtration, that can help consume and break down those waste compounds, thus purifying the water and making it safe for your fish to live in. So how do we increase the amount of biological filtration we have in an aquarium so that you can keep more fish? So let's talk about beneficial bacteria first. This is a naturally occurring, helpful bacteria that lives in your aquarium, mostly on the different surfaces, whether it's the substrate, the walls, or especially in your aquarium filter. So the first step is to make sure you have adequate filtration in the fish tank that is appropriate to the size of the aquarium. Another way to increase your biological filtration is by using live aquarium plants, which in my opinion are a lot prettier and easier to see than beneficial bacteria. Your live aquarium plants will absorb the nitrogen waste compounds that come from your fish's poop, and the more plants you have means the more fish you can add. Now, in general, fast-growing plants like these stem plants or floating plants over here will consume more nitrogen more quickly compared to slower-growing plants like this Anubias over here and a mini Bulbitis in the front. If your aquarium has tons of fish and a really high bioload, sometimes the beneficial bacteria and the live aquarium plants can't keep up and consume all of it. So in that case, it's your job to clean the aquarium and do a water change. What you're gonna need is some aquarium test strips or a water test kit that will tell you if your nitrogen waste compounds are getting to near lethal levels. So ideally you want 0 ppm or parts per million of ammonia and nitrite, and then 40 to 50 ppm of nitrate or less. If you find that the amounts are greater than that, then you need to do a water change where you use ideally a siphon to suck out the old aquarium water, put in new clean tap water with some dechlorinator, of course, and that will help dilute the amount of the toxic nitrogen waste compounds that are in the water. Ultimately, you need to decide how often you want to do water changes. Is it once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month? And then based on that, we'll determine how many fish you can keep. Because the more water changes you do, the more fish you're going to be able to keep. If you don't want to do water changes a lot, then don't keep a lot of fish. The second factor that affects the number of fish you can keep in an aquarium would be swimming space. You may have often heard that rule of, oh, you can keep 1 inch of fish for every 1 gallon of water. And while that may be true for, let's say, smaller nano fish, in general, remember that 10 1-inch tetras are not going to take up as much space as one 10-inch Oscar, right? So the size of the fish definitely matters. In general, make sure you research the maximum size a fish is going to reach in adulthood, because most of the times the fish that you see in the fish store are definitely juveniles and much smaller than what they'll eventually become. Another thing to consider when it comes to swimming space would be the activity level. A zebra Daniel is pretty small, it only gets to 2 inches long, but they're very fast, very active. They're gonna need more space than their size suggests. Versus if you get an ambush predator that doesn't really move around at all, maybe it would need less size than you would think because it doesn't need to move as much. What I like to do is create a list of all the fish that I want to keep in an aquarium, write down their maximum adult size, as well as what is the minimum tank size that is recommended. And then based on that, now I know what tank size I need to get. So if fish A requires a 10-gallon tank, but fish B requires 20 gallons, you know that I need to buy at least a 20-gallon aquarium, if not larger. The last category to consider would be aggression level, and that's kind of gonna throw a monkey wrench in this whole situation because, for example, if you have an African cichlid tank, ideally you actually want more fish and to decrease the swimming space so that none of the fish have any territory that they're willing to defend. And a lot of times people will add tall decorations and plants in order to break up line of sight, which also decreases swimming space, but that is all to control the amount of aggression and make sure that nobody's attacking anybody unnecessarily. If you have a betta fish like me, a lot of times they do like to hang out in the upper half of the aquarium. And so if you're going to put him in a larger community tank, one thing to consider would be maybe getting fish that swim around the middle or bottom of the tank so that they aren't in what he considers his territory and they won't bother him as much. So now that we've talked about the 3 factors that can increase the number of fish you can keep in an aquarium, let me go to the step-by-step method of how to determine the right stocking level for your fish tank. So first of all, I'm going to assume that you have a cycled tank, meaning there is enough beneficial bacteria and live aquarium plants in there to handle fish waste. The basic rule of thumb we want to follow is you can keep adding fish as long as the water quality stays high and the nitrates are below 40 to 50 ppm. So in our example, let's say we have a 20-gallon aquarium and it's full of live plants and we want to start adding community fish. Step 1 is to make a list of the animals you want to keep and then make sure they're compatible. You know, do they have similar diets, similar water conditions they live in? Make sure nobody's going to eat anybody, right? Step 2 is to figure out your water change frequency. So for me, I like to change my water once a week at least, and that means I can keep more fish. Step 3, add your favorite fish on the list to your aquarium first. So if that is a schooling fish, you may want to figure out what is the minimum number you could keep in a school of that type of species, because you can always add more fish later, but let's start off with a smaller amount and make sure the tank can handle it. Step 4 is to measure the nitrite level for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So you can measure it every few days or once a week, depending on how fast the nitrate level is changing. If the nitrite level stays below 40 ppm, then you can start adding your next favorite species. And basically, as long as the nitrate level stays low, you can keep using steps 3 and 4 to add more fish to your aquarium. Once you've set your fish stocking level for an aquarium, don't forget that a fish tank is a living ecosystem, so things may change in the future. If your fish breed, that is going to increase the number of fish in the tank, increase the bioload, so you may eventually need to take out some fish in order to resolve that issue. Over time, plants are going to grow bigger, which means they can consume more nitrogen waste. But that also means they're going to take up more swimming space in your aquarium, and that may not work out for your fish if they have nowhere to move. If you add more fish to an aquarium, that is going to change the hierarchy or regression level in your tank, so watch out for that. And then over time, you yourself will change. You're going to become more experienced, know how to handle more problems in a tank. So I would say in general, veterans who have been in the hobby quite a while can keep a tank more overstocked than a beginner can because they've got the experience to handle it. Best of luck in stocking your new aquarium. I know that's always one of the more exciting times in the hobby. Take time to enjoy nature daily, and I'll see you later.